Remember that chilling scream from Kachua that interrupted our friendly banter at the end of the last episode? Let's take a quick stroll down memory lane. We were all gathered at Bindu's tea shop, our usual haunt. Between the playful jabs and hearty laughter, we touched upon some serious matters. We pondered why Bindu, with her academic prowess, chose to run a tea shop. We spoke of Yakshini's influence after her father's demise. And then, amidst the usual hustle and bustle, Kachua's scream pierced the air, jolting us from our conversation. The source of his terror remained a mystery, leaving us on edge. As the day unfolded, we found ourselves helping Yug and Abhimanyu clean the graveyard, discussing everything from love lives to urban jobs and startups. And then, the unexpected happened again. Kachua's scream, echoing through the still graveyard. So we rushed upstairs, hearts pounding, only to find Kachua, pale as a ghost, pointing at a door that was anything but ordinary. There it was, a door that seemed ordinary but held an eerie presence. It was adorned with multiple religious amulets and had a lock with the number 666. In the dim glow of the lantern, Abhimanyu and Yug stood before it, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Abhimanyu broke the silence, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Do you know what this number signifies, Yug?" With a shake of his head, Yug replied, "Just some superstition, isn't it?" But Abhimanyu was already delving into the lore of the number, explaining its association with the beast in the Christian Bible, its link to Satan, and its perceived embodiment of all things evil and destructive. "And it's not just in Christianity," Abhimanyu continued. "The number 666 also has significance in Hebrew through gematria. It's like a universal symbol of malevolence across different cultures." The conversation then veered towards Yakshini. Yug, ever the defender of the misunderstood, argued that perhaps Yakshini wasn't always malevolent. He recalled his father's belief that she was a good woman, cursed to turn wicked. But Abhimanyu had a different theory. "What if," he began, "the British during their rule used symbols like this, the 666, to unleash unseen forces in India? What if they used our fears against us?" The speculation hung in the air, a chilling possibility that left them both in quiet contemplation. The room, the number, the door, it all seemed to be pieces of a puzzle they were yet to solve, a story they were yet to understand fully. The mystery of the door and the number 666 left us all with a shiver running down our spines. But as they say, the show must go on. As we resumed our work, the conversation took an inevitable turn towards Yakshini. The atmosphere was heavy with uncertainty, the very air around us seeming to thicken with each word spoken. Yug, ever the rationalist, defended Yakshini. He recounted his father's belief that Yakshini was once a good woman, who due to a cruel twist of fate, was cursed to turn malevolent. The idea of a benevolent being turned evil by a curse was intriguing to say the least. It painted a picture of a tragic character caught in the throes of a destiny she never asked for. Yet, the uncanny connection with the room upstairs, where Yug's father Dilip breathed his last, added an eerie layer to the tale. The room, with its religious amulets and the lock bearing the devil's number, was it merely a coincidence? Or was there more to it than met the eye? A tangible dread began to creep into our hearts, a dread that was as chilling as it was inexplicable. Abhimanyu, always fascinated by the mysteries of the unknown, shared his thoughts. He suggested that perhaps the British had created the 666 to unleash evil forces during their rule in India. A far-fetched theory, yet in the dim light of the graveyard, surrounded by old tombs and whispering trees, it seemed uncomfortably plausible. As we continued our discussion, we couldn't help but feel a strange energy around us, an energy that seemed to pulsate with an unseen presence. It was as though the very walls of the graveyard were listening, absorbing our words, and responding in their own cryptic way. Our skepticism was challenged by the unfolding events, leaving us uneasy about the potential presence of supernatural forces. The story of Yakshini, the room upstairs, the devil's number, all seemed to weave a tale that was as mystifying as it was terrifying. A tale that we were now a part of, whether we liked it or not. Amidst the tension, our eyes fell on this unique chandelier. Kachua joked about selling it, but as soon as the words left his mouth, the lights went out. and we were plunged into an abyss of darkness, the sort that makes your heart pound and your skin prickle. We fumbled around, our hands reaching out in the blackness, searching for a lighter. The room was filled with an eerie silence, the kind that amplifies every tiny sound and sends chills down your spine. Shadows danced on the walls as the feeble flame from the lighter flickered, casting an ominous glow over the room. The chandelier, a silent observer till now, seemed to come alive in the dim light, its crystals reflecting the flame, creating a kaleidoscope of shadows on the ceiling. It hung there, a symbol of a bygone era, its history intertwined with that of the house and the people who lived there. The conversation, once filled with jest and laughter, had now been replaced by a palpable tension. The joking voices were replaced with hushed whispers, the laughter with bated breath. Each one of us, lost in our thoughts, wondered if we had unknowingly disturbed something that was best left alone. We continued our cleaning, each movement deliberate and slow, guided by the dancing flame of the lighter. The task, which was once mundane, had now turned into a test of courage. The graveyard, once familiar and comforting in its silence, now seemed alien and menacing. As we worked, the tension in the air grew thicker, almost tangible. Our senses were heightened, every rustle of the leaves, every creak of the floorboards, echoing in the silence. The air was thick with anticipation, an unspoken agreement that something was about to happen. And then, it did. A sound broke the silence, a slow, rhythmic knocking. It echoed through the house, bouncing off the walls, filling the room with its ominous beat. Our hearts pounded in unison with the knocking, a silent symphony of fear. With only the flickering light of the lighter, we continued our work. But then, we heard it, knocking, from the upstairs room. The knocking sound echoed through the silent graveyard, sending a chill down our spines. The relentless rhythm of the knock, knock, knock was eerie, almost as if it was summoning us towards the room upstairs. We looked at each other, our faces illuminated by the flickering light of the lamps, each of us silently questioning, could it be the Yakshini? The idea seemed absurd, even laughable, yet none of us could muster a smile. The room upstairs was supposedly where Yakshini was trapped, the same room where Yug's father, Dilip, had breathed his last. The room with the door marked by the number of the beast, 666. The room that Kachua had been pointing to when we found him trembling with fear. The knocking sound continued, growing louder, more insistent. It was as if the room, or whatever was inside it, was desperate to be noticed, to be acknowledged. We were torn between the desire to investigate and the fear of what we might find. The tension was palpable, like a thick fog that had descended upon us, making it hard to breathe, hard to think. Abhimanyu, the one among us who had always been fascinated by the supernatural, was the first to break the silence. Could it be her? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Could it be the Yakshini? Yug shook his head, dismissing the idea, yet his eyes betrayed a hint of uncertainty. As we stood there, contemplating the possibility of supernatural forces at play, the knocking suddenly stopped. The silence that followed was even more unnerving. It was as if the graveyard had collectively held its breath, waiting, wondering what would happen next. As the knocking continued, we couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that enveloped us. What was behind that door? What was knocking? We'll find out, but not tonight. To be continued.